So I just need to get this to her really quickly.
Okay.
Let's see.
I'm not Craig Whitney. I'm Debbie. Sorry.
Wendy, I'm here.
Oh, Lena, you're there?
Yes, can you guys hear me or see me?
I can hear you.
Okay, let me see. You guys see me better?
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I will start the meeting in just a minute. I just had a problem getting logged in.
Wendy, I'm having audio difficulties as I usually do with GoToMeeting, so I just dropped off the video part.
That's fine. That is not a problem, Sam.
And I'm the
Okay,
same
thank
way,
you.
Wendy.
Is that you, Carol?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that's not a problem. Do we have Dwayne on here? I'm not sure. I've got. Dwayne, are you on yet? Maybe.
Would you like me to try to reach him, Wendy?
No, I think we probably have a quorum.
Okay.
Yeah. Can I just do a quick shout out? We don't have Dwayne. Kaylin.
I'm here.
Yep. Debbie.
Here.
Robert.
Here.
Dennis.
Here. Here.
Yep. Austin.
Here.
Dan.
I'm here.
Sam and Carol.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, this is a little unusual because our chair just dropped off. And I think Dwayne is our vice chair and he's not here.
Up to Kaylin.
So, Kaylin, do you remember if you were serving as vice chair?
Yeah,
or
that's fine.
secretary?
Yeah, I
Okay.
should.
Are you comfortable with that?
Sure. I might need a little help, but I want to try. Sure.
Okay, that's not a problem. Yeah, we're doing election of officers tonight, and I apologize, but Ron just term limited off, and so we're down just a few. Let me. Yeah, Sam, if you want to give Dwayne a quick call. Oh, there we go. Dwayne's on. Great. Dwayne, can you? I don't know if you or Kaylin want to serve as chair tonight until we get our election done, which is in very short order. Dwayne, do you have your mute on? Dwayne? I think he might be muted. Dwayne, are you muted? Okay. Kaylin, would you like to serve as chair this evening?
Yes, that is fine.
Okay.
One.
It is 6 o'clock. Do we have City 7 on?
I don't see him. Oh, okay.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Steve. Okay, we can get our meeting started of April 6, 2021. I'm going to do a quick roll call. Commissioner Stevens. He's here. Commissioner Parker,
Here.
Commissioner Twyman,
Here.
Commissioner Puente,
Here.
Commissioner Tharp,
Here.
Commissioner Conley,
Here.
Commissioner Pierce.
Here.
Commissioner Roche,
Here.
and Commissioner Dagg.
Here.
And we have a quorum with 9. So we would start with approval of tonight's agenda.
Move to approve tonight's agenda.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
Second.
Who is the second? I'm sorry.
Austin.
Austin, thank you. We can do an all in favor.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Agenda approved 9-0. We have a motion for the minutes of March 10th.
Move to approve the minutes for March 10th.
Okay, you're serving as chair right now. Sorry, Caitlin.
Oh, so I can't. Okay. See, I'm learning.
Do we have anyone who would like to? Make a motion?
Since I wasn't on the board. I think I.
And I was not present, so I was not present, so I technically not supposed to be there.
Is there anyone that was present who can make a motion?
I'd like to if I could.
I don't count.
Okay.
I tried.
Okay. Move to approve minutes. Move along.
Thank you.
Move along.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second. Austin.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. So next up on the agenda is our election of officers. Just so you know, the chair and the vice chair will obviously serve. The secretary is really kind of honorary. I do all of the meeting minutes. So we need a secretary technically, but you will not be required to take any kind of notes or anything for the meeting. So do we have anyone who would be interested in serving as chair? And that would go until the following April.
I am interested. Got a bit of learning to do, but I love learning and I like, helping. So if no one else wants to do it, I'd be glad to. But if there's someone that feels super strong about it, that's fine too. I could support them.
I'd like to nominate Kaylin Parker as chair.
Okay.
Do I
I
have
would
a
support
second?
that. You're doing a great job.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I don't know who seconded, but we do.
Dennis.
There you go.
Thank you. So we can do an all in favor?
All in
Aye.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Looks
Do we
like
have anyone opposed? Okay. Anyone interested in serving as vice chair?
sure.
Thank you. Okay, vice chair. Do we have anyone else interested?
Oh, no.
I don't hear any sound. Do I have
Ah,
a
there we
problem?
go. Nope, that's good, Dwayne. We can hear you now. Can you hear us?
He's not hearing us though.
Dwayne, can you hear us? Okay, do we have a first? Can we first for Commissioner Twyman for serving as vice chair?
Sure, I'll nominate Deb Twyman as vice chair.
I will
Okay.
second that. This is Austin.
Thank you. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, do we have anyone interested in serving as secretary? Again, it's just basically an honorary position.
I'll do it.
Great, thank you.
I'd nominate Dennis.
Thank you.
I will second that. This is Austin again.
Okay. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so Commissioner Parker will serve as chair, Commissioner Twyman will serve as vice chair, and we will have Commissioner Tharp as our secretary, and that will be our
I think we lost her.
Yeah.
I think you're frozen, Wendy. Something's
You
going
froze
on.
up, Wendy.
who will be serving for the next year. And Chair Parker for tonight jail for restoration project as a visual enhancement preservation award.
I'm getting a terrible echo. It's hard to hear.
Yeah, you talked for a minute there, Wendy. We didn't hear quite everything. I'm gonna email Wendy.
Chair
I can't hear. We couldn't really hear what you said, Wendy, and so I didn't hear what you said. There's just music playing, is what I hear.
I don't know who's got music playing on in the background. Yeah, that's all I can hear as well. Can everybody mute if you're not speaking, please? There's some sort of music playing in the background.
Wendy, I think it's Dwayne. Can you do you have any way to mute him?
Yeah.
I don't have anything playing in the background.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, okay. Okay, it stopped. All good.
Awesome. Sorry, I didn't hear anything you said, Wendy. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. So we have two projects for consideration, and I have to apologize for those of you who have just started on the commission. This is not typical of our technical ability or our issues typically. So apologies that we're just having a quirky evening. So we're looking at our 2021
call, you know.
We're looking at our 2021 Preserve Independence Awards.
Would that be coming from my laptop somehow or other?
Dwayne, just go ahead and mute your microphone and it'll take care of it.
Just do what? Okay.
Mute your mic.
There we go. Okay, so our Preserve Independence Awards were established to just recognize preservation awards, organizations or individuals in the community. And tonight we have two projects for consideration. The first is the 1859 jail. The applicant is the Jackson County Historical Society, and they have done quite a bit of restoration work at the jail. And so we would be recognizing them for a restoration project. The Vale, it was submitted by the Vale Victorian Society, and they are asking for consideration of a visual enhancement award for their exterior lighting project. Everyone should have received the applications and the photos. So I would just open it up for any discussion. And if you're in favor of both of them, you can actually nominate them separately, one for restoration award for the jail the second for a visual enhancement award for the Vale Victorian Mansion.
I'd like to move to commend the Jackson County Historical Society for their efforts to maintain and restore the 1859 Jail Museum and to recognize them with the Historic Preservation Commission Award for Restoration.
I'll second that.
So Caitlin, you would, okay, and then you would just open that up for discussion.
Okay. So I'd like to open up that for discussion.
And can I ask who seconded, please?
Dennis.
Dennis, thank you. Is there any discussion?
Oh, I'm fully in support of it, Wendy. And then what form or shape would the recognition take?
It's just basically an action item, so I can
So the award, does it just entail like a plaque? Is it like they're an advertisement that helps them get more business?
So there's an actual award statute. It's typically given out at a council meeting, but because of COVID, we're going to see if they can do a pre-recorded video.
Cool.
One of the nice things about getting awards like this, if you let me see if I can do that. I'm going to try. Okay. One of the nice things about getting an award like this, you're writing grants to corporations or recognition or find other places. If you're doing something like that, getting awards like this gives you a certain amount of cachet. They tend to look at you and say, other people think you're doing a great job. You must be doing a great job. And it tends to make one a little more marketable in that arena. So the more the better, especially when it comes to older buildings like the Vale or like the Jail Museum or the Bingham Wagner, etc.
Yeah, they did a great job. The photos were great. I've been to both and I thought they look awesome seeing these pictures since I haven't been forever because of COVID, but yeah, they did awesome.
Mm-hmm. It showed an awful lot of work at the Jail Museum. It was in dreadful shape. Like, and tremendous amount of money. Historic Society has really done yeoman work and they're to be commended.
Chair Parker, if you prefer, you can do an all in favor vote.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then you would ask if anyone's opposed.
Okay. Is anyone opposed? No. Okay. Looks like it was approved.
Applause.
Wendy, this is Dennis. I had to get off the visual go to because there was a lot of echoing. I couldn't.
Okay, and if not, then we could move on to the Vale's exterior lighting project.
Move to commend the Vale Victorian Society for their dedication to the preservation and enhancement of the Vale Mansion and the DeWitt Museum and Arboretum, and to award them with the Historic Preservation Award for visual enhancement.
Yeah, I'm fully in support of that. I think it looks fabulous.
Do we have a second?
Austin will second.
And then what I say, all in favor?
Discussion.
And
Or discussion? Is there discussion?
yes, can
Okay.
you tell me who seconded, please?
It was Austin. Austin seconded it. Wendy?
Okay, thank you. Having a little bit of an audio issue this evening.
Okay. I just.
Yes, that would open it for discussion. That would open it for discussion.
Well, I'm fully in support of it, Wendy. It looks terrific. But Wendy, it looks terrific.
Mhm.
I was going to suggest
And
we
Chair
all go to
Parker,
our
you
phones
can
and-
call for all in favor vote. All in favor vote.
Oh, I would like to. I just can barely hear what anyone is saying. Is everyone else having people cut out?
Yeah, and I just lost visual.
Yes.
Okay. So,
Here, back again.
okay. So is there an all in favor vote to approve?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
Okay. We will move on to our certificate of appropriateness for 611 West Maple. This is a consideration of an economic hardship. Typically with economic hardships, they apply to materials that the commission is asking a property owner to install on their home in lieu of what's often a contemporary material. So for instance, we would ask someone to retain their wood windows and restore them, and they would come in and have an alternative material and claim that the alternative material was cheaper than restoring the wood windows. In this case, the economic hardship, because we don't have any other appeals process, the economic hardship would basically be due to the fact that the property is located in the historic district. So for instance, if this property was even a block further south, it would be permitted to put the solar panels on their property with no restrictions. The fact that the property owner is being asked to reduce the output and get a lower return on investment is part of the reason why it's being considered for economic hardship, in addition to the fact that they, if put on the garage, they would have to bore underneath the concrete, and that would require them to spend additional money in order to accommodate that. The property owner is not in favor of placing the solar panels on the garage, as was one of the directives as an alternative from the commission at their February 2nd meeting. So for those of you who have not been on the commission or were not at the meeting, we did have Alina come to the last meeting to elaborate a little bit more about the project and explain the reasoning behind the existing location that was proposed in the original COA application. So what they're asking for is the installation of solar panels. The panels would be originally be placed on the west, the east, and the south elevation of the main house. It's a 2.5-story home, and it's located on the south side of Maple. You can view these solar panels from the view of the right-of-way. However, we did get clarification that they would be installing low-profile panels, and that the panels, and I believe, Alina, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think that there was even a discussion about the possibility of helping to match the color of the panel frames with the roof.
Yes, so we would be happy to powder coat the panel frames, which are normally just a corrugated steel. We can powder coat them to match the color of the roof, in addition to them also being low profile, as in no higher than 3.5 inches off of the current roof face. Okay,
so our design guidelines do encourage the introduction of sustainability improvement to historic houses in the district. Because it was considered a reversible treatment, they were encouraged by the design guidelines and to not be readily viewed from the view of the right way. Staff was in favor of the original proposal that included the west elevation. The final approval, however, allowed for the solar panels to ask that they be removed from the west elevation. So the representative from Daybreak Solar is discuss why they're seeking consideration of economic hardship. Are there any questions about the original proposal?
In the original proposal, they this feedback is really difficult to deal with. In the original proposal, they objected to placing the panels on the garage, and that was the original suggestion of the Historical Commission last time. That's correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes, ma'am.
I guess I have.
In speaking with the homeowner, part of the reason for him not wanting to place the panels on the garage was it doesn't solve the original problem of being able to be viewed from the street, which I know was one of the objections of the Historical Commission. Secondly, it would require us to bore down into the concrete in order to access his utility meter, which is placed on the home. And thirdly, it would also be a great reduction in production. So not only would he get a smaller system, but that system would be even more in the shade than our current proposal. So the homeowner said that that was not something that he was amenable to.
What is the cost differential between placing it on the garage as opposed to placing it on the home?
Okay, hold on just a moment. I just wanted to make sure that there was clarification on the original proposal. Could we have our representative give her presentation, and then we can open it up to questions about the economic hardship? Just because we had new commissioners here, I just want to make sure there were no questions about the original application. Okay. Alina, do you want to give your presentation, and then we can have our chair open it up for discussion?
Sure. I know I emailed you, Wendy, the full economic hardship application. I don't know if the other members have had able to access it.
Yes, that was all part of their packet.
Okay, great. So according to the economic hardship application, as you can see, showing the street views of the property, the original layout that we had proposed is number 7 as proposed in the packet. I believe it's the, let's see, I think it's the 6th page. So the system as proposed shows 28 panels with a system size of 8.82 kilowatts with an estimated project cost of $42,000. Based on minimum standards for the area, that would increase the equity in the property by $35,280. The industry pretty much minimum is $4,000 per kilowatt as far as value added to the property at resale. So that is based on that, but those numbers are typically 4 or 5 this time of year. I just didn't want to list anything over the minimum. So based on this system as designed, the average electric bill per month would be $27.58 if the system were to do nominal production. So that is accounting for only 6 hours or 5 hours of daylight per day. So that is subtracting sunrise and sunset and allowing for some amount of clouds. His average electric bill would be less than $30 a month. If his average monthly usage stays the same, then it would go down to 177 kilowatt hours per month, resulting in a monthly savings of $202 per month and an annual savings of $2,429. If I factor that in, the full return on investment for his $42,000 originally would be in 17.29 years, which would mean leave a 30-year return on investment of $30,873. That is not counting the potential federal tax credit that he would receive for adding panels. So that could be anywhere from an additional $5,000 to $15,000, depending on his system size and location. So the ROI would be even faster. As far as this was the proposed economic reality, if we were not located, if the home was not located within the jurisdiction of the Historical Commission. So if you go down to the next page, on page 7, it shows that if we were to reduce the panels, if you look at the bottom photo, photo 9 is amended to not show any panels on the west face, which was one of the suggestions from the Historical Commission. without individually going over all of the data, as you can see, his average electric bill would go from $30 a month to $150 a month, which would take him longer to do a full return on investment. And his actual 30-year return on investment would be $11,119, basically resulting in over $20,000 in reduction from his original return on investment for the system as proposed. So the system without any west panels, as suggested by the Historical Commission, would result in a loss of $20,000 over a 30-year period for the homeowner in potential economic gain or benefit. If we were to compromise and put half of the amount on, half of the panels on for the west roof, that would be number 8, just up one. You would see with a panel count of 15, he would still have a 30-year return on investment of $15,805. So essentially resulting again in a $15,000 reduction in return on investment from his proposed system. To go back to what Deb had asked a second ago, part of the reason for not putting the panels on the garage is we would only be able to fit about 10 or 11 panels, which would be similar to the number 9, the bottom one, which again, at that being 11 panels already shows a 30-year return on investment drop of about $20,000. So regardless, putting panels on the garage would have less production because there's even more shading. So the return on investment would actually be even lower than it would be if we put them just on the roof, avoiding the west. So that would actually be an even lesser option for the homeowner, since there's even more shade. If you go up to the photos, that first page where it shows it's page 4 of the application, but it's the first one showing photos of the house. That street view number 2 shows where the garage is, and you can see it's got a significant distance between the garage and that property. So we'd be putting the panels below the tree line, underneath that tree on the garage. It'd be about 10 panels, and then we'd be boring down into the concrete. We'd actually have to rip up all the concrete of the driveway between the house and the garage in order to get to the utility meter. And we have to dig at least 3 feet deep to put the solar conduit. And then we'd have to re-pour the concrete. And so that would actually create more disruption to the neighborhood, as well as less of a production for the homeowner. Let me see here. I'm sure you guys have had time to look over if all the panels were removed from the west, this is what we'd get. If all the panels were added as is, this is what we get. I did speak to the homeowner after our last meeting and discuss some of the suggestions of the commission, and discussed, things like powder coating the railing or using certain types of panels. So he's open to any of it, but he absolutely does want to pursue with the solar project. Do you have any questions on this? Have I covered everything?
Alina, just like last time, I just think that your research is so thorough and you did such a good job. Thank you for all the work you did.
Thanks, Kaylin. And I do apologize. I'm on vacation. I'm visiting my mom for Easter in North Carolina. So I apologize. I'm not in the office. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, this is Robert. I had a few questions. One, the second street view picture, the only garage I see is the one part of the right, which isn't part of this property. The garage is actually more behind the house. And then on your shade structure or your shade study, what time of year is that showing? My guess is that it's sometime in the summer, with the way, because these trees are significantly higher than the house. And it seems like in the winter, you're going to get hardly any production being in Independence.
Yeah, those are good points. So we assume the worst possible shade when we do a shade report. That is based on basically an amalgam of the different satellite images as well as LiDAR. In the wintertime, there is less daylight, but there are less leaves. Yeah. And so it's actually, the report is mainly showing the summer, assuming the trees are full of leaves. And that's where you can see the kind of green shading over it. The system is never going to be super productive because it has shade from the trees. But the homeowner, just knowing that, obviously trees are a non-negotiable thing, and he's not he's not wanting to trim the trees. He would like them to maintain their full foliage and the look. So I think for him, the biggest thing is just getting what he can from his solar arrays, and being located on the garage, he would receive hardly any sunlight at all. But the report is based on an average from the year. So that's why I said we average it for about 6 to 5 hours of sunlight. We actually, in the math that I did, I only assumed 5. But so as you know, in the summertime, there'll be longer days, and in the wintertime, shorter days. And it depends on cloud cover, pollution, and if there's any ice on the panels.
I thought you made an excellent point about having to dig up and disturb the neighborhood and the concrete and everything. If they were to go the opposite route, I thought that was a really good point and something to consider.
Is this a
well,
lease?
back to-
Is this a lease?
Back to Robert's question, though, he asked that the garage that they're showing on the street view too is not part of that property. Is that correct?
Yeah, guys, that is the only photo of the garage that I have received. So that if what you're saying is correct, because I would not on the street. That second street view too came from the sales rep, went out to the property and took photos. So okay, thank you, Deb. So you're showing the garage. If it is behind the house, there's still concrete between the two. I have asked the homeowner to go out and kind of look for me, and he expressed that there's concrete between the utility meter and the garage. So regardless, we would have to bore below level.
Oops, I'm gonna try.
Thank you, Deb.
Sorry, new. I apologize. This is new, guys.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I asked the sales rep to go out and take photos. So these are all I'm working off of. So I apologize. So yeah, unless the garage is completely unpaved to the house, we have to bore through in order. Since the city of Independence does not allow for overground conduit, I'm not able to raise it. Sometimes, you can raise it up a pole and across, but solar conduit is gauge 6 wire and it has to be insulated. So it's not like regular utility power. We are not able to just send the power directly across. It has to go underground as an additional ground option.
Sorry, this is Robert again. Where is their utility meter that you're having to tie into on the house?
I'll have to pull up the original house schematics. Let me see here. Generally, it's located on the front side, in front of any type of gates, because the Evergy or Independence has to have access to it. So
Right.
Let me pull that.
I'm actually not seeing that. But
Because I haven't been able to find it on either side, and so I guess it is actually in the back. There's quite a few in this area that are still on the backs of houses.
Sure.
So my own thought is that the garage is surrounded on 3 sides by land, by just yard. So I don't see where we're having to bore through all this concrete.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm again going based on what the homeowner has told me, and so I can double check on that. But I will say that even if we were to put it on the garage, it does not address the fact of the 20,000 plus reduction in return on investment for the homeowner based on the original plan, which I do believe is the reason for the economic exemption. Is just as far as that is the possibility for him. If you're saying that, I can talk to him about it, but I understand the homeowners not wanting to go down to such a small panel.
Understood. I'm just trying to get clarification since I wasn't on it last time, and not knowing where their electric meter is.
This is Dan. I got a question. So my big hang up is the west side, and I think I wrote down here, and correct me if I'm wrong. I thought when you were explaining the numbers, I thought I heard you say eliminating the western panels would, let's see, something about savings. No, his electrical bill jumping from $30 a month, something like that, to $150. Does that sound right or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's just not a shading, just based what the panels might.
Okay. I mean, I guess I was just curious how you arrived at that number. If you had said that the homeowner is aware that the panels are not going to be producing that much anyways because of the shade. That just seems like $120 a month seems like a huge jump to me for panels that are not, you know, optimally producing for the homeowner. If that makes sense.
Sure. So we on an average for the area, knowing that there was going to be some. So I went ahead and reduced it by a certain percentage, and I did that on average for all panels. And I did that. So if I eliminate X of the west side, that only leaves us 11. So it's the actual reduction in panel count that we're going off of. And then I took the panel's nominal output of 315, multiply it by only 5 hours of production per day, and then did that by their usage. So I took what they produced and subtracted that from his average, which will go up or down depending on the season. And I do believe he has electric heat. So in the wintertime, it will still be high. And so based on that, I came up with the average kilowatts per month that he will be using and multiplied that by his current rate. And that's where I got what his estimated bill would be.
Okay. I mean, but is he aware that those numbers are probably off?
He's aware that they're estimated based on, you know, the shading, the area. I can't speculate on exactly what the shading would be or the weather for the various times of. That's why we did it based on a reduced amount of time. So I only have them producing at like 80% of what their output would be according to the math. And I believe I also have them as only 5 hours a day to kind of compensate. They will not be producing what they could if they were a ground mount in the middle of nowhere. So I did account for that in the math, and he is aware that that will be up and down depending on various factors like the shade or pollution.
Correct me if I'm wrong. At the last meeting, it was my first time to this whole discussion. I was gone for the February meeting, but didn't we establish that the panels would be more visible if they were like moved from where they, like the commission didn't want them on one side, they wanted them moved. Wasn't it established they'd be more visible where they wanted them moved? I wasn't there for the first meeting. So.
Okay, I'm going to try this. We'll see. Okay, that is the view of the street from Delaware.
Yes. Okay.
See how visible the west side of the roof is?
Yeah.
That's just standing on the corner.
Okay.
And it's a one-way street.
And it's a one-way street. And if you look, I'm going to try to scroll. This is the view coming from the east to the west of the property. See how the roof line that you see barely above that, that is the garage. The neighbor next door has a large privacy fence that essentially obscures much of that. Then,
I see that.
Here is,
thank you.
And here is the view from the back of the street in the back of the house. And that's standing.
At the last presentation, I just want to bring up, if you weren't there for the last meeting, there was a lot of great information that she shared about historical buildings, like national buildings, presidential libraries that have solar panels that are on them, and if all these, you know, national historic monuments and buildings can have solar panels, why can't a homeowner who is owning a building 1 block from being outside of a historical district? And I just thought that was a really good point. If you want to promote green energy, then what better way to do it than to actually feature green energy and have people see it?
I think we're all about promoting the green energy. And I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm going to play devil's advocate here. I don't agree with the 1 block, you know, within the historical boundaries. I mean, it's literally like around the corner from the Truman home. I mean, it's a heavily traveled street. It's a main thoroughfare to the square, and that's where I'm hanging up on it. So, in my personal opinion, I don't think that that's really relevant. The argument that he's on the edge of the boundary.
I think, Dan, were you there for the February meeting?
I was February, yes.
Okay, I was not there for the February meeting. Were you there for the March meeting?
I was not there for the
I
March.
was.
I was not there for the March.
Okay, have you had a chance to go through, maybe watch the meeting, and go through Elena's original presentation?
I have
Because I
not.
wasn't there for February, so I had no idea, walking in what was happening. And then I went through and I read the minutes from February. I listened to Elena's presentation, and it was quite a lengthy presentation. And I went in thinking the same thing, and there was a lot of good information in it.
Okay.
If you haven't watched
check it
it,
out. I didn't check it out.
The Truman Heritage District design guidelines. Oop, I'm getting that echo again. I'm getting that echo. I need to pause every seconds here. Call for placing the solar panels in areas that minimize visibility. Not eliminate visibility, but minimize visibility from a public thoroughfare. And I was in support of the original COA. And I'd actually be in support of this economic hardship argument. I think they've done their due diligence and they've done a really good job in the presentation here. And if this project does pass muster, I don't know what will.
right. Sam, I have a question. Since you do work at the Truman Library, are there any solar units or solar panels there? I wouldn't know.
There are not.
Okay. I didn't know. I was just curious.
I know that's been discussed. I don't think there's any reason why they can't be, but I could ask our facility manager that.
I did look for any solar panels that might be located. I was also not able to find them. But in my search that panels on the Truman Federal, there are solar at Truman College. So it's not totally out of as direct Truman as my president from the there are also Truman's terminal. Not even historically in.
I really can't. I'm sorry, I can't understand. Just too much echo.
No, cut out a little bit, Elena, I think.
We're really having issues.
Sorry.
If I
Okay,
may,
and I'll repeat.
Yes.
Okay. Can everybody hear?
Kind of.
Hey guys, this is Austin. I need everybody, if you're not speaking, to put your computer on mute. We have a terrible echo and nobody can understand what anybody is saying. If you're not speaking, let's put our computers on mute so that we can get through this and everybody can understand everybody's message, because this entire meeting has been extremely unclear and nobody can understand what anybody's saying. Apologize. I just need everybody to pay attention to their mute status, please.
Thank you, Austin. So I did also do some research into the area, and there are no solar panels or modern buildings located near the Truman House. So the Historical Commission has done a great job at that and keeping everything authentic to the period. I understand that great pains were taken to keep things super authentic to the period, to the point of like keeping the shrubs overgrown. But in my research, I did find that there are solar panels on the Truman building in DC and solar panels on the Truman College, which I know is not the same, but as far as Harry S. Truman goes, they're not totally unrelated. And photovoltaic panels were invented, I think, before his term in office. And as Kaylin brought up, if you check on the other presentation, there are currently solar panels on the White House, as well as at Mount Rushmore, the Great Rocky Mountain National Park, and a few other Yosemite, a few other national monuments and parks. So as far as wanting to keep things authentic to the time period, I absolutely respect and understand that. And that's why we discuss things like low profile panels or trying to keep the panels similar to the roof color. One of the other points I made in the last meeting is, as far as I know, the Historical Commission has authority over like what goes on the buildings, but if you look down, there's still Hummers on the street. So the fact that there might be solar panels on one roof as you drive towards the house in a one-way street, there's still many other things in the area that would be out of authentic time period, but would not take away from the destination.
Well said.
If I may, my issue with this is 611 West Maple is the 9th walking stop on the Truman Historic District tour. So when they take the walking tour, they hit this place and it's number 9. And specifically, they're hitting it because of the ginkgo tree out in front. That's one of the reasons, which is also on the Missouri State list of historic trees. And they're also hitting this particular house because of its architectural significance as a contributing property to the historic district. It was designed by a local independence architect, and it's part of the American Movement Prairie School and has very specific design characteristics associated with it, including obvious gables and eaves that are outstanding, as well as, of course, the big, strong sweeping front porch. I really do believe that we need to have solar and wind and other forms of renewable energy. And I certainly support that, but it's not like we're saying you can't have that. We're suggesting that we don't want it to be visible from Delaware, and from Maple, which is part of the walking tour. And we want it instead to have a lower profile. So we're not telling them they can't do this. We're just telling them that we don't want it on the west side, because the west side.
We're creating conditions, though. We're creating conditions that make it impossible for them to make this project happen. And if we're going to use the walking tour as the basis, there's dozens of properties that are on the walking tour, and this is not a front face. This is a side elevation. It's not the primary elevation. It's a reversible change. It's close to the roof profile as possible. They're going to powder coat and paint. I mean, I don't know what else they can do to bend over backwards.
And as Sam
otherwise, they're making it very impossible for them to do this.
Sam, as you mentioned, the rules include like minimizing structures that are not historically relevant to the time. And Alina mentioned that there are no other solar panels in that area. If we say no to this on the west side, it is eliminating because there are no other examples of it. It's not minimizing. So I don't understand why, this is his property. Yes, it's in a historical district. I don't think he bought the property to be told what to do with it, just in the vicinity of a historical home that is not the grand stop on the walking tour. No, I don't think that tourists will look at it and think,
if anything, it should be showcased on a tour, in my view. It should be showcased.
It's exciting. It's something that should be featured.
Okay.
Do we be happy on the original invention of photovoltaic panel? Because like I said, were invented before Truman's term in office. So we could even, you could possibly showcase this as an update to technology that was available at the time.
So are we prepared as an historic commission to tell everyone in the historic district that they can put on solar panels?
I personally am not ready for that. As a homeowner within the district, a property within the district, I understood that whenever I purchased this property, that there were some certain rules that I was going to have to abide by purchasing that property. And a lot of times it's inconvenient and it is more expensive, but those are what we as property owners have signed up for. So I personally am not, and I think that that's really what we need to consider here, as this is the first house in the district that is asking to put solar panels on it. And we set the precedent for the rest of the neighborhood by doing this. And I think that Deb is correct here, that if we set the precedent that it's okay to be visible from the street, then the next one, they're going to want to put them right on the front of the house. And then we're going to be having a different conversation. So
minimize visibility. Don't eliminate visibility, minimize visibility. And if we're going to take that argument, let's just strike it from the design guidelines entirely.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I'm sorry, I don't
sustainability, pay lip service, sustainability, and make it impossible for a property owner to install solar panels.
We're not trying to make it impossible. I don't think there's nobody on this commission that's attempting to make it impossible, but doesn't seem like there's any much room for compromise in considering these other options.
But you just said
Alina.
the reason you're a property owner there is because you agreed to certain things, and it doesn't sound like solar panels is part of that.
Alina did share last
I
meeting.
guess I would push
that-
back and tell you that, Sam, if they can tell me what material my windows can be made of, I would assume by design that I can't just strap a solar panel right to the roof without some sort of due process to get there.
Well, they are going through the due process. They've gone
Right.
through the due process, the COA, and then the certificate of economic hardship. They've done everything the proper way. It's not a primary facing, it's a side facing. It's minimizing visibility. True, it's not eliminating visibility, but that's not what the guidelines say.
Can I have a second? Can I have just a second to say something? Alina, correct me if I'm wrong. During your presentation last time, didn't you say that we're the only Heritage Commission you had to present to?
Can't hear you.
Oh. Well, I think one of the important things is, that this is removable if for some reason historically later on it was proper. But we've done things in the historic district that could be changed. And many times we've even asked some people to save material, including rock and other things, when they wanted to put a window where a door was or so other things like that, so that it's not as inflexible as it sounds like it is.
Yeah.
Something that we discussed last meeting was the homeowner is willing to sign paperwork, guarantee. Sorry. Something that we discussed at the last meeting is the homeowner is willing to guarantee move the property.
So there's music, unfortunately.
I think the guidelines are going to be the most important thing, as Sam has mentioned twice now. The verbiage of eliminate versus, minimize is, I think it's super important if we're wanting to go by the guidelines. Minimize and eliminate are two very different things. And if we're wanting to stick to guidelines, I think those are important words to remember. And as Alina talked about in the last presentation, we're the first commission she's had to present to. I think that she and the homeowner have done very much hard work. And I think the reason that she hasn't had to present to any other commission like this is because at some point we have to consider at what length is this unreasonable to have them keep having to jump through hoops, is what I think.
I also have a question about the guidelines, because I understand we did make sure not to place any panels on the front of the house. So when you guys consider front facing, does that also include from a one-way street, any direction that the street may go? So from my understanding, the front facing of the house would be like the front door and the actual street. But it seems that one of the things that we can't agree on is the west face, right, of the west face of the panels if you're driving. So if we are including the side of the house, the front, is that a standard protocol? Is that a standard protocol?
Is that
that is
the answer? I'm not sure.
Yeah, for clarification, the primary facade is the front facade unless it's a corner property. So otherwise, the sides are secondary elevations and the rear is a tertiary elevation.
Thank you, Andy.
So we have shaded panels from the front facade and minimizing on the sides. By minimizing, agree to color them and lower them to the lowest profile, the best, color match that we, as well as the owner agreed to remove that when he.
Herein lies my concern. There is a legal doctrine that usually is expressed as slippery slope. And if we are abiding by the rules of slippery slope, we need to understand that as a board, what we are, I wish I could get rid of the second.
Caitlin, please mute your microphone, please. I think it's yours.
Okay, does that, hopefully. What we have is a doctrine of a slippery slope. If we approve this particular version of solar panels, you need to understand that you have to approve it for every other building in the district,
That's not true.
regardless. That
That's
is
not true.
building-
Take it on a case-by-case basis.
Otherwise, you open yourself up for a lawsuit asking why theirs was approved and yours was not. This particular facing west section is visible from the street. It is on the walking tour. I understand I wasn't on the commission when we had the first procedures. And Alina, you've done a marvelous job for what it's worth. And I mean, if I was going to do solar panels, I would pick up the phone and I would call you right away. My concern here is that what we have is a walking tour. And I've lived here pretty much the entirety of my life. And I live on the street. And I would love to have solar panels. And I can't, because if I do, I change the facade of my house. And it will have to be visible from the street. There's no way around that. We're not saying you can't have solar panels. I think that's a wonderful idea. What I'm saying is I can't vote in favor of having it on the west side of the house. If that doesn't give him enough of a financial incentive to approve a solar panel, that's not something I can have anything to do with. That's his call. But we've told him you can put it on the east side. We've told him you can put it on the south side. We've told him he can put it on the garage. It wouldn't be visible. It would hardly be noticeable on the garage. Problem solved. If they have to tear up any concrete, it's in the back of the house. It isn't visible from the street. My understanding from reading the guidelines is, and as a homeowner who had a tree crash through the front of her house about 2 years ago, believe me, I have read these guidelines. My understanding is that I'm supposed to try to treat this and restore the house in the best way possible so as to keep it as close to the way it was when Truman was alive. That seems to be a reasonable request.
Yes, Deb, I absolutely hear and agree with your arguments. My only question is, as far as slippery slope goes, if we're not sticking with the actual guidelines as written, which specifically say the front of the property, then are we not slippery sloping to say that you could see the back roof from the next street over? So approving them on the east or the south side still allows them to be visible from other roads in the historical district. So by that argument, you would also say no panels anywhere visible, because I know the City of Independence will not allow for a ground mount. And so separately too, is it only things that are visible, or is it being historically accurate as a whole? If a homeowner puts in a pool, does that mean they can't put in a pool, or they can because it's covered by a privacy fence and they could fill that in later? I absolutely see what you're saying. And if the Historical Commission votes no on this economic hardship proposal, then the homeowner will have to agree to anything that you guys decided on, because he chose to purchase the home in the district. I can only convey what he said to me, and I've invited him to come to these meetings. He said that he really wants solar no matter where he is. And that, like I said, looking at if we go with a system without anything on the front or the west side, we're looking at 11 panels versus the original proposed system of 28. So that is a reduction of over half, and a potential loss of $19,000 over a 30-year period in return on investment. Economically, that's the reality.
My concern with this is that when I think of an economic hardship, my definition of the economic hardship is the one that Wendy gave us at the outset, which is we are asking a person within the district to spend $5,000 or whatever more on a same kind of siding. Let me give you a better example. When the tree went through the front of my house, the eaves on the house were originally made of 1.5-inch milled tongue and groove, which is no longer made. You can't get it unless you want to have it hand milled. To have it hand milled would have cost me, I kid you not, $35,000 just to do the front eaves. So we compromised, and instead of getting 1.5 inch, we got the standard. Okay, it's an extra 1/2 inch. It's 3 stories up. Nobody's going to notice, but it's still wood instead of being aluminum. Now, to me, it's a hardship to ask someone to spend 2 or 3 times the amount of money repairing something or replacing something when you could get a material that would look the same and be just as good. But it's not a hardship to ask someone, this is a want. And I want them to have solar, but I don't want them to have solar at the expense of changing the front profile. And enough said.
Technically, it's not a front profile, it is a side profile. And in my view, you know, if you save a homeowner some maybe 4 or 5 times reduce their costs of their monthly bills, I mean, that's reducing an economic hardship. I don't think we really defined economic hardship in any specific way, do we, Wendy?
It doesn't specify as to whether or not it's a return on investment or it's a hardship because of an out-of-pocket expense. But, you know, again, this is a unique circumstance. We have not looked at solar panels before, and we have not asked that they be reduced for what is being requested. So you're just, you know, other than interpreting the fact that it's not on the front facade, that it's a secondary elevation, that most of this is new to the commission, and that's you know, perfectly fine to be having a discussion about whether or not you feel it's appropriate for economic hardship. But it is a unique circumstance, and as we get into more of these optional improvements, then this issue may be coming up again. So it's probably good to have the discussion now, but it is something to take under advisement that we could be seeing more of these in the future. And this issue of economic hardship, when it is optional for the property owner, may be, you know, of concern or afford additional discussion.
Right. Although a denial in this situation might actually have a freezing effect, in which other property owners are reluctant to even bring it forward, because this is, I think, a very solid package that the property owner is bringing to us.
I agree. For the people speaking, it sounds like we're pretty decided in our opinion. Are there any commissioners who aren't decided who have questions? Does that mean we're ready to make a vote?
One more thing on the slippery slope, I mean, which is an excellent point, but I'm not sure you could hear me with the technical problems. We will take everything on a case-by-case basis, you know, and I totally hear what you're saying about fear of legal suits, but you know, we document everything we're doing, we document what we're doing tonight, and it is on a case-by-case basis. So this idea of slippery slope is, I think, is kind of tenuous at best. And I think perhaps we ought to revisit our Heritage District guidelines then, to minimize visibility, to eliminate visibility, if that's really our concern. If we don't want a tour person to, you know, on a tour to see the solar panels at all, when this property owner has done their due diligence, I think, and bent over backwards to try to make this project work in a way that really does minimize visibility, and the reversibility is the important issue here too. Maybe we ought to revisit our guidelines.
I think that's well said, Sam. Thank you.
Wendy, this is Dennis. Quick question for you.
Wait,
Someone's got their.
that music is coming from your computer.
It's not me.
What?
No, I think there we go. Sorry, go ahead, please.
So my question, so if the commission votes against this, I thought I was reading that if this does not get passed by, or if we don't say yay, or then they can then go to the city council. Is that correct?
Well, it's not correct. This is the appeals process. They can appeal to city council, but only if there's new evidence. And in this case, I don't know what new evidence would be proposed that hasn't already been presented at the first COA and in this economic hardship application. We had quite a bit of discussion about this a while back when we had our legal representative come to the meeting, and she was very clear that it could only be through a new evidence process that it could go as an appeal to the city council.
Okay.
And I will ask whoever makes the motion, if you could make it in the affirmative, and then and I know this gets confusing, but then if you are not in favor of it, then vote yes or no accordingly. But we do try to keep it in an affirmative recommendation or a motion, please.
I'd make the motion.
I'll move the approval of this certificate of appropriateness for economic hardship for the house on West Maple, and see if we get a second, and that gets us off dead center here once we have a vote.
Wendy, am I allowed to second, or is that not something a chair can do? Okay.
I'll second it.
Who was the second?
Dennis.
Okay, thank you.
Could I ask for some clarification on to which plan it is exactly that we are looking to approve here with this motion?
This is the motion to approve the request for an economic hardship to allow the original proposal.
Which would be all 28 panels, right?
All panels on the west, east, and south elevations of the main house, not the garage. If there's no additional discussion, I can do a roll call.
Wendy, I have a question.
Did you have a second?
Are you able to make 2 votes, one for the original economic hardship and another noting that the option to resubmit pending no panels on the west, so that I can present both options to the homeowner?
The approval was already given in the original COA for them on the east and the south elevations. So that it was approved. It just was not approved originally with all the panels as presented. The economic hardship is asking that you reconsider all the panels in their proposed locations. And so approval of the economic hardship would allow for all of the panels in the original proposal. Denial of the economic hardship goes back to the approval of the COA on the east and south elevations only.
So essentially, regardless of approval or denial of the economic hardship, panels would still be visible from the other streets and on the other sides of the property.
That's correct. And we did get a second. I think that was that Commissioner Roche? Did you ask if there was a second? We did get a second.
Yeah, thank you. That was Kaylin, right?
No,
No, Commissioner Tharp.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Would you like me to call the roll?
Sure.
Commissioner Parker?
I vote in
Yes.
favor.
Okay.
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Can't hear you, Dwayne.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Slyman?
No.
Commissioner Fuente?
No.
Commissioner Tharp?
No.
Commissioner Conley?
No.
Commissioner Pierce?
No.
Okay, the motion is denied. And that's a vote of 2 in the affirmative and 5 against. So thank you, Elena, very much for your time.
Alina,
And
I hope that they go through with your project the way that we've suggested they go through with it. It would be wonderful to have you doing that in the neighborhood.
I appreciate that, Deb, and I appreciate your candid opinions on this, because I like everybody in this commission so far. So I appreciate that. I will present this new information to the homeowner and see if he wants to continue. Thank you.
Thanks, Elena.
thank you. Okay, at the end of our meetings, we have an opportunity for public comment. We do not have any public comment in attendance, or members of the public in attendance. So we move on to any comments or questions from the Heritage Commission.
Wendy, how is the public made aware of the meeting, and how do they go about attending when it's via GoToMeeting?
Yes, they have a physical posting of the agenda in City Hall. The item is posted in the Examiner 15 days prior to the meeting. The agenda is posted on both the City Clerk's page and the Historic Preservation page online. And there is a note on the agenda that if anyone would like to attend, they can be provided the link if they request it by noon of the day of the meeting.
I also have a question.
And it's also on City 7.
I also do have a question. Sam had mentioned during the discussion that if this is denied, then what are we supposed to go through in the guidelines and change it from minimize to eliminate? There was that point, and I thought it was a good one. Or as it was also discussed, if it truly is a case-by-case basis, do we keep it the same? I was just wondering what people thought.
I personally think it should always be a case-by-case basis. I mean, every house has different views. I mean, this is just a unique situation where the west side is more prominent. So I definitely don't want to eliminate solar panels or green, but I think we just got to be careful with what gets put out there.
I understand. And I know the vote turned out how it went. I do think it would have been beneficial for some people who weren't here last time to go through and watch the meeting from the time before. Just want to say that.
To that point, I was not here the last month, but however, I was here the month before when all this was started. So I feel that I had enough knowledge what was going on. Plus, I looked at her notes as well that was sent to us that was over the last meeting. That's how I came to my decision.
Cool. Awesome.
Wendy,
sorry. I was just going to clarify. So I would say that, the issue with the Secretary of Interior standards, is someone not on mute? I'm sorry. We're getting that feedback again. Okay. So the issue both with the Secretary of the Interior standards and the guidelines are both that they are not, they're not directives. So they don't tell us exactly what we can and cannot do. It's just direction for both the property owner and the commission to consider. And we do very much look at each of these on a case-by-case basis, because again, it depends on where the property is located in the block. It depends on whether it's non-contributing or contributing. It depends on how much of the original materials have been changed. It could still be contributing, but maybe have, no longer have a tile roof or no longer have wood windows. So absolutely every single case comes up on a case-by-case basis. And, that's part of the reason why we really encourage both people who live and work in Independence and who live in and out of the historic district to bring all those perspectives together. So, I think it was a really good dialogue, but I think as far as the guidelines go, they do give you some direction, but they're not set in stone. So it is something that has to be often a lengthy discussion because of the location of the property itself. And oftentimes too, we're not looking in the historic district, we're looking at an individually listed property. So perhaps, you know, it may not be surrounded by other historic buildings. It could be contemporary buildings, and you're only looking at that one property and whether the integrity is affected in that one property. So, you know, for instance, at the next meeting, we are going to be looking at a demolition request in Golden Acres, and it is not historically designated area, but it is a historic neighborhood, and it was the first planned development. So all of that will be taken into consideration as part of the application when we're looking at it, and it will be address to address and location by location. I don't know if that helps with the guidelines, but
When are we able to meet in person?
so the mayor is allowing each board or commission to make the determination on their own. But the problem is that we're large, and because we have 9 people, there's no way to socially distance and stay on the dais at the council chambers. So right now we can only meet virtually, or we can meet as a hybrid, which means half the people would be at home or in a remote location, and the other half the people would be in the council chamber. And that, because we're so large, it just makes it really difficult to have our meetings. So I'm hoping that by the summer, if the numbers stay low and we're able to get a better handle on this, we can meet by the summer. But for right now, I think because of our size, we're pretty much limited.
Wendy, are there any alternatives to GoToMeeting? I seem to have real technical problems with GoToMeeting, yes, in particular.
Yes,
No.
we're gonna be switching the next meeting over to Teams. So for those of you who already have it and you're familiar with it, that's great. It'll give us an opportunity to give some tutorials to those of you who don't. It works very similarly to the GoToMeeting, but the city utilizes Teams for all of our internal meetings, and they would like us to do so for the external ones as well. And so we'll be transitioning over to that, likely for the May meeting.
Okay, that sounds good.
Try to be like Robert and get a headset.
Wendy, I just had 2 quick questions. Do you know when the next Preservation Month meeting is going to be?
We only have 2. We only have 2 meetings, and they have done those. So the next opportunity will be publishing our calendar. So.
I just want to say that I don't know where those chimes are coming from, but if it was me, I would have picked a hymn.
Yeah.
It's a peaceful little music box, wherever it's coming from.
Yeah, I don't know where it's coming from.
So Sam, just for clarification, our Preservation Month calendar is done. We only have 2 planning meetings, one in February and one in March every year. And it's just a matter of getting the last of the descriptions from our other contributors before I can go ahead and publish the calendar, which I hope to do in the next 2 weeks.
So that's great. So we were so efficient, we got it done in 2 meetings. That's good. All right. And then my other question was about CLG training. Is there anything to worry about, like maybe a virtual training this year? We didn't have it at all last year, but.
I have not heard from Kelsey at the state. I will get in touch with her because usually by now we've heard something one way or the other. So I will get with her and then send any information out that I have to the commission.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Wendy, are there any funds available to individuals within the historic district or people who have historic properties like the gentleman who requested solar panels? Are there any funds available to them, grants that might offset, for example, digging in the trench and changing the concrete?
Like an economic hardship.
The only thing that we have are the tax credits because of the National Register status. So they have tried to pass a tax credit for residential properties, and they have been unable to do that for like 40 years. So right now it's only to income producing properties. And then the state does offer a 25% tax credit for residential or commercial, but it's for state liability income tax only, the liability that you owe per your income tax. So it isn't as beneficial as the national is, but you know, it can be paired, but it isn't really much of a grant, an outright grant, where someone could use it to offset any costs. We've been looking at the opportunity to have a low interest loan through local banks. And as I can get back into the office and have some discussions with local lenders, that's something that we're hoping to work towards. But there are no outright grants for residential properties.
That was a really good question, Deb. And I love that idea, Wendy, about a low interest loan for people. I think that's great.
Any other comments from the commission?
Would it be good to move to adjourn?
No, you have one more, and that's me.
Okay.
So at the very end of the agenda, there's the staff's opportunity to update you. At this time, if I'm working on a 106 review, which is a requirement that if federal funding is involved in a project, you have to go through and make sure that a historic resource or resources are not affected negatively. And I'm not currently working on 106, but we do have the Square project that will be submitted relatively soon. And so I will give you an update on that when that gets submitted. Otherwise, I have not gotten an update about the Thompson Plantation home. They are trying to work out the current owner, and they have to do that in order to write citations. The representative, who is the contact for the dangerous building specialist, said that they are looking to sell the property, but they need to be able to actually identify through the record system the property owner. So they're trying to get it stabilized before it collapses, and we just hope that they can do that relatively soon. We do have the COA that I spoke about coming before the commission at the next meeting. So if you cannot attend, if you'd please let me know. We absolutely need a quorum for that demolition request, and that's a single family home on Red Road. That will be posted in the paper as well. That'll be part of the agenda. And then we do have at least one page of events, about 5 or 6 events that we're going to do for Preservation Month. It's not the large scale Preservation Month calendar that we typically have, but I'm pretty excited that we could pull something together and have some virtual presentations. And then as we get through the rest of the year, we'll go ahead and have our walking tours that we do in the fall. And I'm trying to work with some other heritage groups in the community to try to get some events perhaps over the summer. And the intent of that was to go ahead and stretch out our celebration of our Missouri Bicentennial. And so other than that, if there's no other comments or questions, we could get a motion to adjourn.
The Truman Depot opening in May, Wendy, is that still happening?
And that's a Sam question.
Sam.
Are you talking about the Truman Depot? I'm sorry, or the Truman Library?
Yeah, the Truman,
yeah.
Oh, is that
the Truman Depot project's been postponed?
Oh, okay.
They are still negotiating with Union Pacific. And as soon as they can either with an alternative that keep Union Pacific from commenting, or they can work out a solution with Union Pacific, it's somewhat on hold right now.
Thank you. I was just wondering.
Question for those of us who were not here, you're talking about the Thompson Plantation. Would you mind sending an email to us with some information about that for those of us who were not on the commission last time?
Yes, it succumbed to a fire. There's really nothing I can send to you. Anytime that we have fires or we have dangerous buildings that are in imminent danger of collapse, if it's going to be through an emergency demolition process or there's a large fire, they send me photos of that, and I just let the commission know that it's unlikely that the commission will likely review it as a demolition request because of the status. if it's able to be repaired, it wouldn't come to the commission. Only if it's demolished, and if it is, it will likely be by emergency demolition. So that's as much information as I can provide. It's just, unfortunately, it's just when buildings succumb to fire, or when the building official declares it in imminent public danger, and then I just send pictures to let you know that it's going to come down, per their declaration, excuse me.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Move to adjourn?
Yes, thank you. I was going to say, if there's nothing else. So I have a first. Is there a second? Dwayne, you're seconding? Okay, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Thank you all very much for your time, and I will see you in May.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Night.
Good night.
Thanks.
Thank you, Steve.
Good night.
Night all, thank you.